everyone. Welcome back to the Chaotic Wholesome Talk Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Kay Purcell. I'm a TTRPG performer, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, David. Who is you, and what are we doing here?
Hi, I'm David. Welcome to the Chaotic Wholesome Talk Show, where we talk about spicy things in the D&D community. Not spicy things in the Twitch community, at least not this week. Where we talk about how to be a better player, how to be a better GM, with a focus on intersectionality and inclusion so that everyone can have a good time.
So, today, there's been, in case you've been like under a rock and you didn't know about this, there's been some interesting things that have been happening with D&D recently. Hello, Candace. We got Rex Verdi hanging out. We got Candace in the chat. Thank you all for hanging with us. So we are going to, I'm trying to find, here it is. Does this include, because we got to talk about the Hadozee. Am I saying that right? Hey, Steve, how's it going? Cashes love this chaotic holes and talk. Sure, that works too.
I mean...
Thanks, Caption.
Kay talks, and I have the chaotic holds. So, it's fine.
Yeah, it all works out in the end. So David, the Hadozee. Hadozee?
Do we have a link to the original absolute foolishness that
I am actively digging it up because it seems like a lot of places have been removing the original text.
Which, good. However,
Yeah. Here we go. Here is a wonderful Twitter thread that has a lot of information, including some images that show why this is quite so problematic that I don't necessarily want to put on this stream. So if you click this, it is mostly not visible in the preview, but they're not like, I hate to say they're not incredibly racist, because like, let's be fair, all racism is bad racism, right?
Yes.
But so we should talk a little bit about what this is. The Hadozee, Hadozee. I don't know how you say it, y'all. It's such an old thing in D&D.
Hadouken. Hadozees?
Hadozees?
Okay, I'm going to type it in chat, and y'all, for anyone watching at home, Hadozees. One, why did they could have called it anything.
So, I did some research here. And apparently they first appeared like back in the 70s. So this is like a revamp of a species that was around way back when. I'm going to read some of this text. This is out of... It is no longer on the digital versions of this, but if you got a printed version of Spelljammer, yeah, unfortunately, this is in your book. The first Hadozees were timid mammals no bigger than house cats. Hunted by larger natural predators, the Hadozees took to the trees and evolved wing-like flaps enabling them to glide from branch to branch. So they're like a monkey flying squirrel. What could possibly go wrong from here?
Right.
Several hundred years ago, a wizard visited Yazir. I think that's right, Yazir, Yazir, and the Hadozee homeworld with a small fleet of spell-jamming ships. Under the wizard's direction, apprentices laid magic traps and captured dozens of Hadozees. The wizard fed the captives an experimental elixir that enlarged them and turned them into sapient bipedal beings. The elixir had the side effect of intensifying the Hadozee's panic response making them more resilient when harmed. The wizard's plan was to create an army of enhanced Hadozee warriors for sale to the highest bidder.
Ooh-wee. I sure love that Massa made us more resilient so that we could sell better. Whew. And okay, so let's start with not all racism is coded for a particular race. And that is something that people often struggle with. It's like, well, it's not targeted at black people. It's not targeted at East Asians or Southeast Asians. It's not targeted at West Asians. It's not targeted at these particular groups of people. Therefore, since it's not targeted, that means it's not like racist. And it's like, one, it's racist. Because racism is the basic idea that one race, regardless of who, is better than another. So if you ever position your race or a particular race as better than another, even if it's a vague, amorphous, non-specific other, still racism, still bad. Because there's no, we all got the same DNA. We're all the same people. If there was really that big a difference, there'd be no miscegenation. There'd be no interbreeding, as they call it. There'd be none of that stuff.
Oh, David, it gets worse too.
Yes, continue.
And so this is kind of there was an incredibly delicious hot take on Twitter. Nothing to do, I guess, tangentially to do with TTRPGs, foundationally, but someone who was angry about the Lord of the Rings show, or people, went on a thing, and I really need you to just brace yourself for this one, David. Someone got on Twitter and decided that the hill they wanted to die on was, I am so tired of people complaining that orcs are a racist stereotype of black people when Tolkien very clearly said they were a racist depiction of Mongolians.
Ooh-wee, that is it's funny because I hadn't heard that one. Ooh-wee.
That was the hill someone decided they needed to die on to protect Tolkien.
There's so much to unpack here.
There's so much to unpack. I also feel like, Candace the Magnificent says, I also feel like the race of the person doing the uplifting of their race over others has to be an oppressive force in society. Like how Asian and Black and other BIPOC folks can't be racist because we aren't capable of oppressing others under global white supremacy.
Yeah, so Candace says we can be bigoted and prejudiced, but not racist. So there is an important distinction, one between prejudice and racism. Racism is specific to physical characteristics, but also there's a difference between structural racism and
systemic racism.
And so the United States is structurally racist because from day one in the original document, there are words in the founding laws that govern our society that say one set of people is less than and one set of people isn't. Same thing is true in India. The same thing is true in many other legal documents that you will find internationally. I'm Black. I can be racist against other people, but it's a different flavor of racism than the government of the country I live in is racist against blank. But ooh-wee, Tolkien was British, so of course there's this assumption, if not expectation. Not a guarantee. I'm not here to slander all British people. Just the Queen. No. Uh,
Black and Irish TikTok and Twitter have just
right.
delivered this past week.
Caribbean TikTok, African TikTok, Caribbean Twitter, African Twitter, the Irish, American Black TikTok. We're all friends now. We're all. Thank you, monarchies, for bringing us together.
I needed the lulz.
But so Mongolians just. So, what did the Mongolians do to you? Like, dear Tolkien, had you ever met a Mongol? Do you know how hard I have to search in this city, this international metropolitan city, to find Mongolian food? Let alone an actual Mongolian? And I guarantee you, like, 1940s London wasn't crawling with them. They're minding their own business. They didn't do nothing to you. One. And yeah, that is just a terrible hill to die on, because you're like, no. He's not being racist against you. He's being racist against them. That makes it okay.
Yeah. Quit
Yikes.
complaining, people. This isn't
Right.
about you. So, Hadozee
Also-
saga continue. Oh,
I'm not going to launch into a whole thing about Lord of the Rings. It is appropriate to talk about Lord of the Rings in this space because Lord of the Rings gave birth to D&D.
yes.
I'm going to reiterate a point that I've seen said over and over again. They invented a whole world full of a whole bunch of people, of different walks of life, of actual different races who, like, can't intermingle and whatnot. And your complaint is that you see black people on the show? What white supremacists and people who are white focused need to realize are two things. One, between 80 and 95% of the people on this earth are darker than you. Accurate representation in the media is going to look very different than what you're accustomed to. Two, we are not the enemy. We are not dirty. We are not like this gross, uncouth thing that should never be observed. So if you have a problem with seeing us in media, like, you gotta figure that out. You gotta do something about that, because I hate to break it to you, we are not going away. And there's nothing wrong with us being here, and there's nothing wrong with us being in TV shows. Candace says, also Tolkien wrote that hobbits have nut brown faces, so that ranges from Brazil nut to almond. Those people will swear Beyonce is their Jesus. Okay, so that's a whole nut. And again, I didn't mean to get on this whole, like, racist.
I mean, we're here to talk about this, so we may as well, like, come out. Also, my favorite was all the people going, like, okay, so you complain about, POC in roles, but you're totally okay with this, and they had Elijah Wood as Dragon Ball Z.
Right. Like, there have been a whole lot of white people that have played non-white characters, like Johnny Depp, Tilda Swinton, other juggernauts in the industry. But also, something my mother said to me once, decades ago, that I've never forgotten. They want our rhythm, they don't want our blues.
The Hall of Avatar, yes.
Love to watch us play sports. They love to listen to music that we founded. They love to reap the benefits of our contributions to society, while also trying to deny our participation and acknowledge those contributions. Ooh wee, listen, James Cameron. I have never seen Titanic. I am probably the only person who was alive between 1990 and today who has not seen Titanic.
I've not seen all of Titanic.
But between Titanic and Avatar, James Cameron is coming very close to erasing all of the good things that he did for pop culture. Who, yeah. And here's the other thing. The other thing about Lord of the Rings. Not only is it a made-up world with made-up people, but it's off canon. It's not stuff. It's fan fiction of Tolkien. Like if you don't want your fan fiction, then click on the next story in AO3, or better yet, close the window. And that's the other thing, is not all media needs to be targeted at you. There's plenty of media that isn't targeted at me. I'm looking at, like, you know, reality TV shows, variations on The Bachelor. What's the one where they send out people in furry suits to sing songs? Like, not targeted at me. And I'm not saying it's bad. I understand, like, I'm very happy that the furry community finally has their own reality TV show.
They got Ninja and Lady Gaga, so, you know.
Right. But unfortunately, I am not a furry. So it's not for me. And it's okay that it's not for me. Doesn't make it bad. Doesn't make it a sin against TV and, you know, right-wing Jesus or any of that. It's fine. It's great. I applaud. I cheer. Go dream up some more furry suits and trot them on out there. If it's not for you, don't complain that it's not for you. Things can be for other people. Like there are plenty of people that need tampons. I'm not one of them. It's okay that tampons aren't marketed to me.
But you might have a bloody nose and need one, David.
You know what? If I have a bloody nose, I earned it and I should suffer.
So, we are going to circle back to the story of the Hadozee. Hadozee? Hadozee.
Yeah, we're still the real
still
struggle
not sure.
of this.
We're still not sure.
Of this episode is the pronunciation of.
Well, look,
Hadozee.
we're gonna. Other side Steve says he was gonna mention the bloody nose, and Rex Verde says they're good for bullet wounds as well. But instead of the wizard's plan coming to fruition, the wizard's apprentices grew fond of the Hadozee and helped them escape. The apprentices and their Hadozees were forced to kill the wizard, after which they fled, taking with them all the remaining vials of the wizard's experimental elixir. So, I'm gonna pause for a second for folks who are listening to this who maybe look like me. That section is really problematic because that gives you the white savior outlet. Oh no, I wouldn't be the evil wizard enslaving the Hadozee. I'd be the apprentice saving them. There are... David, I'm waiting for your rant about you don't need another movie about a black person told from a white person's perspective.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh, listen. Y'all got the help, and we're done now. Like we're done. Like you have that. You have the white savior thing. There's enough white savior films out there. You have them. Much like the Western, you are occasionally allowed to like squeak one out once every few years to great fanfare, but otherwise you're done. First off, what do you mean they were forced to kill their oppressor? Now, I don't advocate violence against anyone. Like, you hear that Twitch, you hear that YouTube. I don't advocate violence. Like, I'm not Andrew Tate, okay, it's fine. But when
However,
a bunch of when a bunch of people who are being abused, enslaved, genocided, experimented on by whatever, the machines, there's going to be an uprising, and I'm not going to have any complaints about it. But so jot that down. But also, good gravy, the white savior. Like, for one, just the idea that this wizard made them bipedal. It's like you weren't a person before me. You weren't civilized. You didn't have culture. You didn't have purpose. Like, it stinks so much of civilizing the savage that it is deeply, deeply, deeply unpleasant. And I'm sure Wizards of the Coast has gotten a whole lot of external and internal blowback of this. And I will simply echo what they're all saying. In that, I'm not saying that we live in a world where this doesn't end up as a first draft. I'm not saying that. Because there are going to be some well-meaning people who are very tone deaf who will churn something like this out. And while we want to work past that, we're still in that place now. And I get it. The problem is the Wizards of the Coast, the D&D books are not made in a vacuum. It's not like something you throw up on DM's Guild where it's like, oh man, I got really drunk one night and I had this great idea and I typed it up in Notepad and submitted it. And then you wake up the next day and look at it and be like, oh my god, I published this. You know, it, like, multiple writers, multiple editors, formatting people, multiple formatting people, like a whole army of people laid eyes on this before it reached the presses. And ultimately that's my complaint.
Yeah.
Because it's not, oh my god, this is racist. It is so many people had to either not notice or rubber stamp or just make the wrong decision for this to get through that it calls into question the character of the company.
I am posting this here. I'm going to post this link to a Twitter, and it is mature tagged for sensitive content because, again, the number of people who saw this and signed off, one of the artwork included is clearly a Hadozee bard. The problem is the pose is so incredibly close to the minstrel show, like the infamous minstrel show. And it is again, it is sensitive content. It is very much not okay. I'm not putting it on the stream because I don't want to expose anyone to it who doesn't want to have to be exposed to, you know, a racist caricature. It's not the exact same pose, but it is so close.
No.
It is not okay.
It is not. It's not maybe this is close. It's now. A brief comment on the minstrel character in the minstrel show. There's a whole lot of research that if you want to take up independently, it's much more expansive and complicated than you might imagine. For instance, Mickey Mouse is a minstrel character. Cuphead is a video game with minstrel depictions.
I don't like the minstrel that our captions are giving us, but we're all adults here ish.
And yeah, and there are some elements of the minstrel show that is so integrated into our perceptions that the original meaning and the original offense of it has very much been lost. Like the whole Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben thing. People don't understand why Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben are offensive, and they also don't understand why, as a whole, the black community, well, I can't speak for everyone, but a whole lot of people I have personally talked to, a whole lot of things that I've read on the internet, where people were like, we don't care about Aunt Jemima, we don't care about Uncle Ben, fix real problems. Because in the social hierarchy in the antebellum South, so you'll hear Alfred refer to Bruce Wayne as Master Bruce, because Master is a archaic title for a single male. Just like you hear the distinction between Miss and Mrs., Master and Mister. Mister is a man who is married. So Master Bruce, because DC is a pack of cowards and won't let him marry Selena Kyle, is still single. But the problem is, it's an honorific, and you can't put you in the antebellum South, you couldn't put black people on the same level as white people. So an older single black man and a younger single white boy, there still had to be that power discrepancy. And so no matter how young, they were still referred to as Master and Miss. But older black men and women couldn't be. So instead, they were referred to as aunt and uncle. Which is why in a lot of communities, especially in the South, you'll hear two black people who've never met each other and who probably aren't related refer to each other as cousin, because you refer to their parents as aunt and uncle, even if there's no familial relation. So the thing is Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben are our aunts and uncles because of that installed social stratification, that artificial social stratification. So at least me personally and people I know didn't care, because technically they are. Like, we don't know them. They're older black men and women. And they also aren't based off real. I think Uncle Ben is based off a real person and Aunt Jemima isn't, or the other way around. I don't remember. Please go Google. But again, there are all these things that are so deeply ingrained in specifically American history, that it's tough to figure out where to divorce it. Like Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is a minstrel character because he is, or his original depiction was black with big white gloves, and big eyes. And that is a direct one-to-one comparison to minstrel. And while his design has evolved over the years, Mickey still has the big white gloves. And the big white gloves that you'll see in Disney stuff, that you'll see in Cuphead, that you'll see in other fantastical vintage productions, have those gloves. And that is technically a racist symbol of, the minstrel. Now, do I personally want Disney to go and completely redesign Mickey Mouse so that he does? No, I don't want that. What I want from Disney is for them to make a good Star Wars movie.
I want for Disney to stop messing with copyright.
Right. First, stop messing with copyright, then maybe turn out a good Star Wars movie.
And also
But
being
in
sexist
case,
and racist and homophobic.
right, and in case Santa is listening, yes, the dragon I want, I do want it to be red. Back to the original point. This depiction of these ostensibly monkeys is not, oh, we happen to miss that this is an old-timey thing that happened to carry over. This isn't a Mickey's white glove situation. Oh my god, this is racist. And Kay and I do a lot of prep before our shows. We do a lot of research and everything. I purposely, just like I hadn't seen a D&D movie trailer, I purposely went into this mostly blind. Like, I got a message at 4 o'clock in the morning, 2 weeks ago. It was like, oh my god, David, just look at this. And I read it, and they were like, we're going to talk about this on the show. So I stopped looking into it. I hadn't seen this picture before now, and ooh-wee.
I'm going to make it worse because I'm going to read you the personality section.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Most Hadozee were innately and actively curious and were unquenchable optimists. Just right there. You know we're in trouble.
Yeah.
The latter quality lent itself to a tendency to tell dark jokes at inappropriate times. They were expressive, intensely so, resorting to loud whooping, fang-bearing, and snarling depending on the emotion. Hadozee were not philosophers. They gave little consideration to the ethics or morals of other races. They simply wanted to do good and happy work. They took great joy in the simplest of shipboard tasks and chores. Now I'm going to give you a minute, but don't start talking yet, because we're not done. There's one more paragraph. And we're going to watch David's head explode here, y'all. The Hadozee had a great love of the elves. The elves employed Hadozee often, but did not mutually respect them. Oftentimes, this love of the elves resulted in flattery towards them.
I was going to say this does 1d4 psychic damage. And then I was going to say this does 1d10 psychic damage. But I don't have enough dice in my bag to represent the level of psychic damage that those two paragraphs have done for me. Ooh.
And again, setting it up for, now you can go play an elf who's actually nice to their Hadozee. You
don't respect
the good
them.
person of this story. You can be the one. You can be the one elf who actually loves and respects your Hadozee. You can go out there and be that person. Go, white savior.
Oh man, did you? Hey kids, do you want to play a white savior? Here you go.
While you recover, I'm gonna read a couple of these comments. Yeah, Candace the Magnificent says people were like, but flying monkeys were in the Wizard of Oz and no one was upset. And Black Twitter was like, yeah, there was a problem then too. We were just, segregated.
Yeah.
Other side, Steve
They
says,
didn't let us on Twitter back then.
now I thought you were reading, what I'm reading right now is the 3.5 and older lore. And then Candace says, oh no, this is the worst part as I'm going. Vivian Ribonenza says, I haven't read all this till now, but it feels like a bad joke. Rex Verde says, was this based off some horrific bet on what's the worst thing you think we can get through print? Other side Steve says, I couldn't find any of that in the 5e material. So the blowback was so badly that they have removed this from all the digital versions, and they say that it's going to be removed from all the future versions. But if you purchased a copy of Spelljammer, this is in there. This is in print. They have removed it from all the digital versions, though. Mew level of psychic damage. Yes, excellent reference. Mewtwo, yeah. I was looking online before the traction and got removed. Before it got traction removed. Yeah, it was. There is. I'm gonna post this whole thread again. Again, trigger warning. There's a lot of racism and problems in this. There are screenshots here of Oh, whoops, that's the wrong thing. There are lots of screenshots here of the various things that were in the lore before, as well as the image, the minstrel image we were discussing before. If you're watching this in the VOD, it will be in the comments. Do please be aware there's a lot of problematic things here. It's awful.
It's awful.
And it, again, it almost feels like, and now I can't deal with Manhattan being this loud right now. I don't know what happens in the offices of Wizards of the Coast, but I imagine they went, it is magic in outer space with magic flying monkeys like we had in The Wizard of Oz, probably. You know, and this is something that's been around since the 70s. No one's complained. So we don't need sensitivity readers, right? We don't need. And this is why David and I have been yelling for a very long time about don't just hire sensitivity readers. Bring in folks from different backgrounds and empower them to say things are a problem, because there are way too many times I've heard stories, I have seen when they bring in people of color, when they bring in LGBTQIA people, when they bring in diverse perspectives, when they bring in women, and it becomes, why is it always about that with you?
Yep. And if you...
Hey, Jody Orangebeard, thank you for the follow. Welcome.
If now or at some point in the future, your plan is to hire a sensitivity reader, whatever you're planning to pay them, give them more. Because they need extra money for the gas it takes to drive to the beach, fill up a bucket with sand, and then show up to the corporate office and throw handfuls of sand at every idiot.
And also, do keep in mind that if you are hiring a sensitivity reader, we've discussed this, people are not a monolith. And what one person is like, you know what, I think that's fine, or they might say, hey, there might be a problem with this, I don't think it's that bad. Their experience might be very different from someone from the same race, but a different background, different upbringing, a different age group. You know, language and society are living and complex. And one person cannot necessarily see every single thing.
A good sensitivity reader will give you a more nuanced, dynamic opinion. They won't just rubber stamp it and go, this is good to go. They'll say, hey, I personally don't have a problem with blank, but here are the problems with this. And it's important to remember that a sensitivity reader their job isn't to read it and go, well, this is how it makes me feel, and it hurts my feelings, therefore you shouldn't. Their job is to provide context, and it's your responsibility to listen to that context, because someone providing context for this will go, okay, here's the history of minstrel shows. This is why this particular image is problematic for communities, not just in the United States, but many communities around the world. they'll say to you, look at the history of TSL, look at the recent history of TSL. Do you want to publish something that's on the bubble? Do you want to publish something that is, um, vague enough whereby you can be accused of, um, but in addition to that, you have to remember that at least when it comes to black people, because again, I'm most educated about the black experience in the United States. Not just through experience, but through a lot of intensive study. There is this misnomer that we are culturally homogenous, regardless of all of the anecdotal evidence that the wider public has had that we are not. Like, you go back to the 90s, there was the whole East Coast, West Coast rap thing. Like, people who didn't listen to rap heard about this conflict. And I know a guy from northern Wyoming. It's either northern Wyoming or northern Montana, where I've had conversations with him, and I've made references to what I thought was our shared experience, and he gave me a blank face and like blinked at me, and I was just like, "Oh, woo-wee, that's quite a." I'm so happy for you that you grew up without dealing with any of that. That's crazy.
Mm.
But like I mentioned earlier, the aunt, the Aunt Jemima, the Uncle Ben thing. Like I said, in my personal experience, and I personally don't think that it should have been as big a deal as it was. However, hopefully, at the companies that are responsible for the production of these products had a whole team of um, well-trained, well-educated sensitivity people who went, we've been telling you for years you need to change this. You need to get out ahead of it. Go do it. Go. It's too late now, but better late than never. Go do it. And finally they listened.
And we're seeing this change in even technology fields too. There's there's master servers and slave servers, and that language is leaving now in a lot of companies.
And I had a point. You just left.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, it was going to be about tech companies, so it was piggybacking off of AI. A lot of
Woof.
a lot of AI is coded around the experiences of well-to-do, middle to upper class white men. And that's, I hope and I believe it's not on purpose. It's just a consequence of the people who run the companies and the people who are actually working on the tech stacks that make these things happen to be decently paid, sometimes not decently paid if you work in game dev. People who are producing these. But think about how much voice recognition software. Like, there are tons and tons of videos in the early 2010s of people in other countries trying to talk to Alexa, and it just not working because regional dialects of English weren't accounted for and weren't planned for and weren't programmed in. And again, not something that I think is a purposeful slight, but again, this is why you need sensitivity people. This is why problems like this continue to happen.
Please, if you have not watched it and you want to really have your world rocked, maybe not, but watch Coded Bias on Netflix. Documentary that investigates the bias in algorithms after MIT lab researcher Joy, I am going to butcher her last name, so I'm not going to do it, uncovered flaws in facial recognition technology. It couldn't track her face because she was black.
Yeah. Ooh wee.
There's
There
whole
was
the racism around, like the history of like racism around the cards for photography, for how to light people for photography is really ingrained. Even voice microphones are difficult for women to use. Like female voices, higher voices come through microphones in a bad way. I have to work specifically with my sound guy anytime I do VO for the company because it has to be calibrated to my higher frequency voice.
also VR headsets.
Yeah. But let's see, and Ribonanza also brought up a great point. You have to bring in your sensitivity readers early. I know so many companies who, were like, we hired the best sensitivity reader, and sensitivity's like, you gotta change like all of this, and they're like, we can't afford to do that. We've already done too much. Like, bringing in a sensitivity reader doesn't mean your product is going to be not racist, right? It doesn't eliminate that. It's going to tell you where to go to start fixing what's there.
Or if you do what you're supposed to do and bring them in on the ground floor, it'll avoid the cost.
But you still have to listen.
And I mean, like, there are people who crunch numbers. Like, their whole job is to assess the impact of decisions that companies make. A very famous example is the people who tell engineers for cars no. They go, listen, this defect will kill people, but it will cost this much. And that number is smaller than it would cost to fix the issue so that no one dies. And if you'd listen to the engineer from the start, then you wouldn't need to do that math. And let's hope that without a sensitivity reader, no one's getting killed. Given the state of how things are unfolding and have always unfolded worldwide, I cannot confidently make that assessment. But either way, it's a real good idea to, one, listen to your engineers, listen to your fabrication people. The number of NASA engineers who went to someone who didn't have a college degree and went, I went to school for 4 years, you do it the right way, shut up and listen to me. And then a dead $500,000 prototype later goes back to that same quote unquote uneducated fabricator and goes, listen, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Same thing with sensitivity readers. Listen to them early and listen to them first before you dig yourself a hole you can't dig yourself out of.
So, I want to read off, I'm not going to read all of it because it's kind of long, but I want to talk about the statement that Wizards of the Coast issued after all of this blew up? Caught fire? Right. We wanted to acknowledge and own the inclusion of offensive material within our recent Spelljammer Adventures in Space content. We failed you, our players and our fans, and we are truly sorry. The campaign includes a people called the Hadozee, which first appeared in 1982. Not the 70s, my bad, close to the 70s. Regrettably, not all portions of the content relating to Hadozee were properly vetted before appearing in our most recent release.
Oh, you don't say.
As we continue to learn and grow in every situation, we recognize and let our values and what we have to do. And then they continue. Effective immediately, we will remove the offensive content about Hadozee in our digital versions, and these will no longer be included in future reprints of the book. Our priority is to make things right when we make mistakes. Additionally, we've initiated a thorough internal review of the situation and will take the steps necessary in that review. It continues, thank you for calling us out. So there's still a couple problems with that apology in that they really don't explain like how or why. Like, hey, we thought flying monkeys in outer space, what could be wrong with that? Like, there was no, we did hire, because this is the thing, as soon as this went up, and this is why it sucks to be, this is why you have to be really nice to your sensitivity readers. As soon as something like this goes up, someone says, what, did they not hire a sensitivity reader? Or they said, which is usually the answer, why didn't the sensitivity reader catch that? And that's, from completely different view, like, turnabout on it, but like as a community manager, whenever a company puts out a really bad tweet, everyone's like, who let the intern tweet? And I'm like, a tweet like that was not an intern. That was something that I guarantee you a community manager, a social media manager was like, please don't do this. And an exec was like, it's happening, right? It's not the sensitivities reader's fault especially if they pinged it up and no one listened, but they don't tell you if they listen. They don't tell you if they don't tell you if the sensitivity reader was involved. And yes, we will do better. Yes, we've removed it. That's great. We genuinely, Wizards Coast, thank you for acting. They did act pretty quickly. Because it was pretty damning. But, Wizards of the Coast is like a really old guard company. And when you're going to let some people who don't look like your old guard in there to help make some of these high-level decisions? Just wondering. Just wondering.
There are many situations where someone like a sensitivity reader sits across the table from either a decision maker or someone who reports to a decision maker. And they submit their report and they say, okay, here are your problems. Please go fix them. And they go, oh yeah, this looks great. We really value your input. Checks in the mail. Thank you for your time. And you walk out of that office with the sense of, wow, I really did my job. I really pulled them back from the brink. And then 2 weeks, 6 months, a year later, they implemented nothing that you talked about. And you're like, why? And you know that part of the blowback will fall on you. Mm-hmm. Because like Kay said, someone will go, well, who was the sensitivity reader here? And in a lot of situations, corporations will advertise, hey, this really awesome person who is a respected member of these communities, we brought them in to have a look and to comment and to help guide this. And so when it then rolls out and they've been completely ignored, then that reflects poorly on that person. And it's really just a very naked attempt to utilize the cachet and reputation of that person to appeal, to pander to the communities that you are now insulting. And one of the things that every person in a marginalized community should key in on is not just that the people at the top look a certain way, are a certain way, and have excluded people from marginalized backgrounds. It's that we always say one of two things. Either they should let them in, or, well, we should go do our own thing. And I'm not going to get into the whole like Little Mermaid thing, because ooh-wee, that's a whole discussion.
It's too much.
That is
it's too much, man.
Outside the scope. But I read one comment that said, don't people of the Black community recognize that, you know, you're being used as a token to appeal to, and why don't you go and do your own thing? Well, one, we've recognized this whole time. There's one thing that I can say, I can speak confidently for the whole community. We get it. We've been tokens. And other marginalized communities and other marginalized people have been used as tokens. We've seen it here in the TTRPG community. Like, I've clicked on streams where I'm like, oh yeah, that's the token person, and it's not necessarily a black person or a woman, or but there's something there. Everyone else looks a particular way, and then this one person stands out. But also, how is a marginalized group, especially groups that have been marginalized since the dawn of entertainment, since before the dawn of entertainment, going to make something that is on the level of production and distribution and reach of a Fortune 500 multinational corporation? Like, black people can't just go out and Little Mermaid.
I want a shirt. I could never wear it, but I just want there to be a shirt that says, "Why can't black people just go Little Mermaid?"
Right. Um, and the reality, so something that I've always advocated specifically on this channel is that white people, cishet men, which it's still, to put it in perspective, when I say cishet men, that's coded white in my brain. Like, I qualify, but I say cishet men, and I don't feel like I'm talking about myself. But white people, the cishets, all the cishets, we need you. Like, we shouldn't live in a world where I and others have to advocate that yes, we are people, that yes, we matter, but that's where we are. And so we need people who don't look like us to also incorporate us into their lives, to intermingle, because that's ultimately how racism dies. Because you see two-year-olds, one white, one black, one boy, one girl, or any other marginalized combination that you want to conceive of, and they're not going to automatically hate each other. Like, yeah, if they like steal a toy or whatever, they're going to fight, but ultimately you will see them smiling and laughing and hugging. Humans are social creatures. We all want to get along, and not wanting to get along is an unnatural state for humans. And so exclusion and hatred and prejudice are all taught. These are all like learned experiences, just like we learn Arabic numbers in school. You learn how to hate people who look a certain way, who believe different than you, who have different experiences than you. But we need those people to advocate for us, because by advocating for us, you are advocating for yourself. Like, dear white men, where would you be if Chuck Berry didn't invent rock and roll? Like, Grandmaster Flash walked so Eminem could run. And like, we've all, the reason that there's a panic about peanut allergies in schools is because the peanut butter and jelly sandwich is a staple of American kids. There are people in other countries who think that a peanut butter and jelly sandwich is the United States exporting a joke. They think it's a meme. But George Washington Carver was like, what if we take it and blend it up and make it into a thing, and then you could make a sandwich with it? And guess what? That saved hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people from malnutrition, especially in a time when food was really impossible to get a hold of. So what Kay and I advocate for is not, listen, you cisheads, listen, you white people, just get out of the way. You are part of our communities, and we are part of your communities, and we should all start acting like it. The enemy is not people who look a certain way or people from a certain background. It is oppression. It is racism. It is misogyny. It is all these things that aim to divide us when now more than ever in history we need to not be divided.
I was having a conversation. We're going to read, Candace has amazing comments here. We're going to read them in 1 second. But I was having a conversation, a very serious conversation with someone that I didn't know well, who was I don't know all the details, but I presume, a cis het white dude. Older, middle age, runs D&D, and was saying, hey, I am starting to feel like maybe I shouldn't even be on camera. Maybe I should stop running games and I should just do production. And I'm like, no, wait. Because he had an understanding of this space, there's a lot of people who look like me in this space, and maybe I should be out of the way. And I'm like, no, you should fill your table with diverse people. Because the minute you say, you know what, I'm not going to have any white people at a table, there's a whole group of white people who are going to say, that's not for me. Look at Into the Motherlands. They keep getting questions of, well, I'm not white, so how can I play this game? You can, I am a woman-ish person who grew up playing video games when female protagonists were not a thing. If I played as a billion emo JRPG dudes, I promise you could find some way to find space in this game. And that's kind of the thing, is if you are a person who looks like me, if you are a dude, if you are a masculine presenting person of whatever race, whatever color, whatever sexual orientation, fill your tables with people who don't look like you. Well, I don't know, my circle of friends is all people who look like me. What do? You start reaching out, you start bettering yourself, you start figuring out, hey, I had what I thought was an awesome game with 3 really diverse people, and none of them are talking to me anymore. But no one said anything, so it can't be anything I did. No, something went wrong there. And you need to really reflect on why those people are not coming back. Really dig deep, because here's the thing. Women, queer people, people of color, we have instincts. We can sit in a room and be like, that's a problem. Oh, that's a sign. And if everyone except for the straight white dude can do that, the problem isn't that people aren't communicating. It's that someone isn't picking up the book and reading.
We people from marginalized communities, and again, I speak to the Black experience. We have there's nothing worse than being out in public, meeting a bunch of new people, and then meeting someone who is racist, and they don't do anything, and they don't say anything, but and that's fine. There are places I could go where there will be at least one racist in the room every time. That's fine. Someone will be playing a banjo, there will be a river, it's fine. But the worst part for me is when we leave and I turn to my friend who I went with and went, so-and-so was really racist. And they go, no, they're not. How what did they do? How can you tell? Blah, blah, blah. And it's there's so many little things where any one of those little things, they're going to go, no, that's not racist. That's, blah, blah. You're misinterpreting. But you stack all those things together. Water isn't a stew. potatoes isn't a stew, salt isn't a stew, but you keep adding stuff to that pot, and eventually it's gonna really smell like racism. Um, and one of the things that we hope to promote and advocate for is, people who aren't necessarily part of the oppressed communities. You need to listen to um, the people who are and believe them. Like there have been a number of like prank videos on YouTube. They're very easy to find because there is this running trope of when black people see someone running, they just start running, and it's true. Um, you know, growing up, I've definitely seen that. Someone comes around the corner and they're booking, then I'm out of there. And later, I'm like, hey, what were we running from? What was the problem here? And then they'll tell me. But your survival instincts are honed in such a way whereby you default to, if somebody else is pinging danger, you listen and you follow. And you get an explanation later, because it's better to take off running after that person, and then the velociraptors come around the corner and you go, oh, that's a good reason, rather than you go, hey buddy, slow down, stop, tell me what might be, because then the velociraptors come around the corner and they eat you.
And the same is true for the opposite of the flight response, which is like the freeze response. If you're with a whole group of people and 3 women in there and all of a sudden one of them shuts up, they all shut up, because we're all like,
yep. Ooh. Absolutely.
Do you want to read Candace's thing, or would you like me to?
You do.
Okay. Candace says, I grew up in a 99% white community, and one day I woke up and people were different. I thought I had changed somehow. But it was more that OJ wasn't convicted, so I became an enemy. Bizarre.
Fun fact, Martin Luther King writes his first experience with slavery was he was 5, the kid across the street was 5 and white. And when he started school, his neighbor's parents told the kid that he wasn't allowed to play with them anymore. And I'm sure, I was going to say I'm sure that Martin Luther King experienced racism before that, because I personally have, and that's a dangerous thing to say. But one, kids at 4 years old should not be experiencing racism. And 2, the saddest thing in the world is like this person that you have fun with, you can't anymore because of arbitrary thing.
Yeah. And let's also be really clear, and this, I feel like it's a little bit of an obvious, but like, let's just be really clear for anyone who's maybe stumbled onto this and is like hearing some of this for the first time. A lot of the racism, a lot of the problem is not the person running down the street being angry, shouting the N-word. That still happens on occasion. But racism,
Yep.
Racism is often, and bigotry in general, be it homophobia, be it toxic masculinity, it's something that's a lot more quiet and a lot more subtle and a lot more systemic. It's people not getting promotions. It's people being excluded. It's people knowing they are in danger when the people who don't look like them are not aware that there's any danger, are not in danger themselves. So it's a very different, again, the overt racism still exists, but a lot of what we're talking about is a little bit different.
It's your name is Muhammad and you apply to 200 jobs, and then you change it to Bob, and all of a sudden those same jobs are replying to you. And here is the insidious nature of racism. My name is David. It is a very common, very homogenous name. And, Hebrew means beloved. Great name. My parents in Texas in 1983 chose a white sounding name for me on purpose because they did not want me to grow up with the name Jamal or Kendrick or any of these other coded names where you could look at a resume and go, okay, that's a black person. Okay, that's a Middle Eastern person. Oh, that is a Chinese person. It goes directly in the garbage. And the impact that it has, not just off of people being directly racist, but of the hoops and the limitations that marginalized people have to go through to avoid bigotry. There are whole industries built on that. Hair relaxers and flattening irons and perms and all of these things so you could have straighter hair so that you can look in a way that is more homogenous to what ostensibly is a minority. And yeah, and so the insidious nature of modern racism, the very quiet but still aggressively biased, and then also just the uneducated, clueless,
skin bleaching, yeah.
aggressive nonchalance, like we have in the D&D thing here, where they went, "Oh, it's not racist," but it very obviously was.
David, I'm sending you a new link because we've lost your captions. Please and thank you to click the thing. Candace says a lot of people assume we are violent. I've had the cops call on me 5 times.
Yeah. Oh, and people assume that what? Let me click on the thing. People assume that we tell dark jokes. People assume that we are loud and boisterous. One might say intensely expressive, and we whoop loudly, and you can always see our teeth because of the contrast. One might even argue fang bearing. Assumed to be not very bright, can't grasp philosophy, and can't grapple with ethics and morals, and thus need a benefactor to guide us in the ways of civility. But we were good and happy workers. And this is the problem. Even if you cut out everything else, the whole white savior, the whole elves had slaves and didn't like them, but the slaves worship the ground they walk on. You didn't have intelligence or independence until a educated wizard, because it wasn't a sorcerer, it wasn't a warlock, it was a wizard, came along. Even if all of that got snipped out, just the one paragraph in personality is like, ooh wee. Like, if you're gonna put the N-word in your book, just do it.
So I wanna take a real quick pivot to do the other side of all of this, because now D&D 1 or 1 D&D, I always say it backwards because 5e, 1 D&D is being play tested, and Wizards of the Coast is actively asking for feedback. The survey is still open, so if you are curious, there are links. You can go download it for free, read it, give your thoughts about it. It is basically version 5.5. It is backwards compatible with version 5e, and it's kind of their new update. And they're tackling some things in certain ways, and some of it's great, and some of it's not. But I've got the character origins is the first Unearthed Arcana that they've released for 1 D&D. And, they've got the basic about here's the races. They've cut it down. Asimar are gone. It's now Ardling, which breaks my heart because I love my tiefling Asimar. But then
For
there's...
anybody playing at my table, they're going to be, like, ASMR's not going away. It's homebrewed in. Let's just nip that in the bud now. Continue.
There's a little grayed out subsection, like a little standalone box that says children of different kinds of humanoids.
Uh-oh.
Thanks to the magical workings of the multiverse, humans of different kinds sometimes have humanoids of different kinds sometimes have children together. For example, folk who have a human parent and an orc parent or an elf parent are particularly common. Many other combinations are possible. If you'd like to play the child of such a wondrous pairing... Had to pause to watch David's eyes.
Yo.
But wait. Choose... I've lost my... if you'd like to play of such a wondrous pairing, choose 2 race options that are humanoid to represent your parents. Then determine which of those race options provide your game's traits. Size, speed, special traits. You can mix and match visual characteristics, color, ear shape, and the like, of the 2 options. For example, if your character is a halfling and a gnome parent, you might choose halfling for your game traits, and then decide that your character has more pointed ears that are more characteristic of a gnome. Finally, determine the average of the 2 parents' lifespan and figure out how long your character will live. So first off, let's talk about the wondrous, the exoticizing of mixed race peoples. Obviously, this is not a thing that I have much experience with, personally. I mean, I am German, white, Scottish, white, Irish, white, Norway, white. Like, I am white on white on white, right? Norwegian. Thank you. I just am blanking.
They eat shark, right? Are they the ones that eat shark?
You did
No,
not
it's
make
Iceland.
it. That's Iceland, yes. Welcome, Jeff, Supernova Jam. You made it not just at the end, but we're in some spicy stuff. We're talking about the One D&D race things for mixed race characters. So, when I worked at Red Bull, I had the great opportunity to work with Ammunition, who was amazing, and I remember when she posted a video talking about, like, hey, I'm not even going to try to recreate it, but she's like, I am of mixed race. These are my origins. She said, I have never spoken about it, and I didn't want to speak about it because I grew up with everyone looking at me and going, oh, you're exotic, are you mixed? And I know that Jasmine, that bronze girl Ular, was talking in one of her streams about, she was like, she was working in an old folks home, and she's like, old folks are the nicest racist people. Like, she's like, they'd be like, you're so pretty, are you mixed? She's like, no, I'm not. And they're like, I hope my son marries a black girl so that their children will be as pretty mixed as you. She's like, thank you, I'm not I'm
black. Whew.
So, it's like an overcorrection the wrong direction that's happening here. Like, what can we say to these are wondrous races. This is a wondrous combination.
You're allowed to be that tone deaf if you are over 70 and not an elected official.
But, so yeah, first off, exoticizing people as a whole and mixed race. And then, there's a part of me that understands why they've written these rules this way, because I can definitely feel that they're like, we don't want everyone to just pick the strongest, like, I'm gonna be these 2 races so I can have hellish, I'm gonna be an orcling or a T-fork so that I can have hellish rebuke and savage, what's the orc, when orcs, when you get 0 hit points you can come back with 1 immediately. Like, I want these 2 features, right? I want the 2 strongest features in the game, and that's why I'm picking this race. But also telling someone, you've got 2 races, and only one of those cultures is going to impact you at all. We're going back to bioessentialism, right? Like, you are this one thing. And David, you and I have talked off stream about people that you grew up with who were like, oh, I'm not black, I'm half black.
Yep.
And it's like, the world sees you as this, right?
Yep.
Which is not good, but also there's a lot of bioessentialism that happens in D&D and in TTRPGs as a whole for shortcut reasons. Because when you're building a character, it is overwhelming to be hit with, here are all of these things, here are all of these features, here's all of this. You know, an easy thing is pick your race, it comes with X, Y, or Z. But the world is not that clean cut, right? Even, you know, again, even my mixed race background, I am Norwegian, I am Irish, I come from cold, stormy places, I die in the cold. I die at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. It's too cold.
Yeah. In case anyone is wondering, yes, Kay needs more heated socks. And we can cover how problematic D&D was in 1979. But while understanding the history is important, I also feel that it's a little bit of beating a dead horse. But not just in D&D, but in many, many, many tabletop games, when you see human, that's coded Jesus white. It is coded to look a certain way, or of a couple of certain archetypes, when really human encompasses everything that is human. And so that sort of casual, vague erasure, it's really hard to break out of that. It's really hard for that to not be persistent in later editions of the game, because orc, elf, tiefling, dwarf, all of these are hung on the hanger of human, and that human is coded a certain way, and so all of these are variations of human, underneath the surface. And so because before, very, very recently, there was no half orc, half tiefling. There was no half elf, half dwarf. There was just half elf, half dwarf, half orc, where it was human and Wizards of the Coast has a really complicated road to navigate to break out of that. And good luck with their sensitivity readers and all of the people that they are consulting on this. They are not paid enough to address this. So Wizards of the Coast, if you're watching, pay those people more.
And yeah, there's been a lot of talk around how can this get better. And part of the discussion, and Connie Chang also had some incredible commentary around it. Noir Enigma also, I got to read some great commentary. But a big thing they said is like, well, number one, an easy that wouldn't fix everything. It would definitely not fix, but like an easy win could just be, why not just pick your species, not your race? Just pick your species. Now, racist will still code racist behavior in species.
Absolutely.
But also, it's a little bit easier for an upcoming generation who, let's be honest, the current generation of D&D players, they don't care about the old school, old guard. They grew up on Critical Role. They have never known a world where goblins are not playable characters.
Right. I keep forgetting that goblins are playable.
They're around going, we want to play the monstrous races. How can I be a minotaur? I want to be a centaur. How can your dungeon be accessible to my centaur, right? They're coming in bringing accessibility from a purely fantasy standpoint, if only they turn around and pull that into the real world, right? Like, it wouldn't fix it, but it would also... And then the other option is, divorce it. Divorce your features from your race. Connie Chang in Transplanar, each of their 8 kingdoms have a different god and different ideals. And in Transplanar, your stats, your pluses come from the country that you are born into. So it is more of a nurture than a nature, which is an interesting approach. There is also, and I'm gonna plug this because y'all know I'm a fan. Our favorite Mr. Gabe Hicks has on his itch.io. It's called the CMM, the class modifier module. I play this. This is actually what I use to build my Himbo Bard, where your stats are divorced from your race and it is tied to your class. It's a great, easy, accessible tool that if you're just like, you know what, you don't gotta have the -2 intelligence modifier to your orc. And 5e has also moved away from that. Now they're like, hey, they're generally like, hey, you get a +1 in one stat, or +2 in one stat and a +1 in 2 other stats, and go bananas. And yet they're still tying a bunch of stuff to, I don't know.
And for anyone who wonder, if you have not seen Gabe, 1, go follow him on Twitter. 2, if you're wondering what he looks like, Gabe put, I don't know if Gabe did the art or somebody else, but that is fan art of Gabe as the barbarian. Like, yes. Hoo-wee. And for anyone wondering, yes, he's that hot in real life. Yeah. His eyes.
I know.
Yeah, you know.
But yes, there are several options. When I asked to play, and I've gone about these a couple different ways. I play a T-Fork, and I don't even remember what my build was, but I was like, hey, these are the stats that I want, and this is why. And I worked with my GM. Everything I did for that, I'm a very story-driven. David has seen me take stats that are, and I can't say this yet, but there's a character that I'm playing where I specifically, my build is so, I made it work, but it's suboptimal. It is the opposite of min-maxing, because I was like, oh no, I want this part of my story, so I have to pick this, even though it goes against what I should do for this class. But by picking that, it also gives me all these cool thematic elements that I wouldn't have just as that class. So, I'm going to that another time. But my T-Fork, Relentless Endurance, that is the thing. You can get Relentless Endurance as a half orc. And I think I took that, and I did not take Hellish Rebuke, because, Brandon's just, really chill, He's not gonna, if you hit him, he's just gonna bonk you back, and maybe you just shouldn't do that.
Pain. Character's pain.
Brandon's just he's got a dragon that just eats everything. And he's cool. But I very specifically, wanted to tie into, Brandon is a character who went through a change in their life, and they were born with and given a female-coded orc name, and reached the point at in Tiefling tradition, when you reach a certain age, you get to pick your name. So Brandon picked, after a lifelong female-coded orc name that no one could pronounce, chose a male-coded human name because he was tired of no one being able to say his name. And his mother is just a little bit disappointed that he didn't pick a traditional, what's the term? Virtue name. A traditional tiefling virtue name, but still supported him because her son, and she's proud of him. So there are reasons to play half characters beyond, oh, I just want to min-max the system. There was also a really incredibly sweet story of a bunch of people, like someone running a game for elementary school students, and in a very mixed school, and one of the children was very quiet because English was not their native language, and they're like, I'm not very good at English. They're like, well, you're an elf, and so is a half-elf, so why don't we just say that Spanish is the language that elves speak, and then you can speak to the half-elf, and they can interpret for you. And so it became, all these people were like, oh my gosh, can I be half this, because then, this can be the language of my character. And it was so cute watching people figure out, like, oh no, like, the language that divides us can also, like, play into this, and we can get to know each other and our languages, and also our character's culture, and share all of this. And that's incredible. And again, you're talking about kids. Kids naturally like each other. We all want to get along. We all want to learn more about each other. And a lot of this is, like, taught, and it sucks when you see something that could be so uniting specifically used for hate. And then I've got my weird vegetation genasi. So here's the thing, y'all, if you don't know, and I'm sure you do know, you can homebrew in D&D. So, if it comes out and they're like, yeah, well, we've just decided you pick a stat block from your... No, that can leave. And you can work with your players. And, maybe someone really is min-maxing and you put limits on them, right? Maybe you say, like, yes, you can be half whatever, Brandon Lee Mulligan, in multiple campaigns, this character has returned more than once in Dimension 20 shows, plays a half-orc Aasimar. A trans half-orc Aasimar. And he's incredible. And he's got the best accent, yeah? He's like, oh, lovey, come here. He runs a whorehouse to the gods.
Hot.
It's incredible. I love Garthy so much. Garthy is just my hero. But you can homebrew, and you can work with your players to create. And what is the world? Like, Judy told us kind of a same story to what I said before, where whenever she played with her friends, she always plays an elf, and she speaks Spanish. So Elven is just Spanish in her worlds, and her GMs have embraced that. And it's incredible when you can give your players kind of that control of, like, okay, what do you want to be? What can you bring to it? What is our world? What is our twist on it? So don't be afraid to homebrew your stuff, especially, if you really enjoy playing monstrous races and maybe you want some flirtatious lines. You can homebrew some monster humping into your game. No one's going to tell you no except your GM if they don't want to run that kind of game. And your fellow players, get consent before you do. But, like, have some fun with stuff.
If your DM doesn't allow monster banging, you can message me on Twitter and we will set something up.
Y'all, that's a lot. We had more stuff we could potentially get into. We could talk about this for a very long time, but we covered a lot of ground. We had the Hadozee, the One D&D, and then also the Little Mermaid stuff, like, all hit at once. So I'm like, we gotta do as much as it's, we're just gonna scratch the surface. We gotta do a talk about this. Also, while we're talking about race, happy Bisexual Awareness Week. You can be bi. Being bi is not just not making a decision or going through a phase. We see you, bi folks. You are valid. You are real. And just because you are in a relationship that is either same sex or opposite sex, or them sex, what's that?
I'm not weighing in on that.
Non-binary. You have a non-binary partner, doesn't make you any less bisexual. It just means that you found a partner who's not a bit certain, happened to do a certain thing. That's all it means. So.
Yeah, just because you found your person doesn't mean you aren't who you are.
Also, if y'all didn't see Cardi B's retweet or quote tweet to the 4 celebrities who identify as bisexual but have never dated someone of the same sex, whew! Carly!
Very spicy.
Carly! Whew! Yes, and also to the Ace homies. So, we have been talking for quite a while. We've had so many people hang out. Thank you, chat. Thank you for... this is a heavy topic. It is one that I am only so qualified to talk about. But, you know, if we don't start having conversations and listening and reading comments and, you know... My himbo lore bard has low whiz, so I could max charisma. My Fey Lost has surprisingly high wisdom and very low intelligence. I love playing high whiz, low int. David knows the chaos I cause with that.
Yes.
This show has been amazing. Thank you so much for hanging out, chat. I don't think it is. I'm just gonna refresh this Dropbox just in case we can show something real quick. And I don't think it's, that's cool. That's cool. So, we are going to wrap up. Chat, if you have any final comments or questions, now is the time. I am going to go to my streaming schedule so I can see what the heck is coming up, because there's a lot. Thursday is the conclusion, the finale of Waterdeep Tales. That is with myself and Candace the Magnificent, who's hanging out in chat, and as well as other David and Jen, run by Saucefire of the Mercy Road fame. And then Monday is the series finale of the Halls of the Mad King with my incredibly chaotic changeling. I did not plan for them to be that chaotic. I also learned in this stream that I can do impressions. Who knew? We will be back next Tuesday with the Chaotic Wholesome Talk Show again every Tuesday, and we have a special guest, the Fungeon Master, coming up next week. I'm very excited. Wednesday the 28th, a new episode. 28th, a new episode of the Emergency Power Podcast is going to air, where I play a soul, the cosmic wanderer Solarian, the worst person in the world. They're very fun. And we announced, so I could say it, coming up on the 29th will be the first episode of our second run of the God Plane. It's a good episode too. Yes. I'm really excited. Some spicy stuff has started, y'all. We're getting close to a big bad. Coming up on the 29th will be the first episode of the God Plane. Now, God Plane is an original 5e horror campaign which David and I co-wrote. David is my co-DM. I will be on camera, but David will be working all sorts of magic behind the scenes. We hope to announce our cast very soon. Y'all, you will not believe some of the people we've got playing. This is going to be an 8 episode campaign, so we'll be going until the 17th of November will be the final, the finale. And it's good. The art, if y'all have not seen the art, my friend Cozy Spoon did so good, and Domo Kane, who's hanging out in chat, is doing the graphic design, and everything looks incredible. I can't wait to share with you all the details. It will be 8 parts. God Plane was run before. David and I ran it on last year on the Gaming Trend channel. You do not need to watch the original. In fact, some of the tent poles are the same, so maybe don't watch the original. But this is a campaign that's highly tailored to our characters and to our players, and all of those fun little details are going to be deeply interwoven into the story. And ooh, I'm so excited. Dave and I are going to be mean. It's going to be a fun, spoopy time. So, whew. Oh yeah, and then this one is scheduled, so I can talk about it on October 16th. Both Candace, again in chat, and myself are going to be on that D'Angelo's channel playing 5e for a Sunday horror game, along with Drac. I am seeing his icon in my brain and not getting his name. Oh my goodness. Draconis, and Sage Ryan. Oh my goodness. I'm so hyped. Draki, yes. It's going to be a good time. D'Angelo's games are always just the right kind of chaos. So we will see. I might be playing my magical girl. We'll find out.
Ooh.
That is what I have to plug. It is going to be a very busy few weeks. Wish me luck. I'm getting my COVID booster tomorrow. We'll see if I'm alive for the Waterdeep Tales. David, who are you and what are we doing here?
For anyone watching, if you can't tell, Kay's schedule is completely open, so feel free to reach out because she got nothing but free time.
I got charity games. I'm happy to do charity games.
But hi, I'm David, and I'm glad we finally announced Godplane, so I can finally say I've been working on stuff. There are other things that Kay and I are working on that are unannounced yet, so there will still be some radio silence, but there will be more stuff in the future, especially around Christmas time. But hi, I'm David. This is the Chaotic Wholesome Talk Show where every Tuesday we talk about TTRPG stuff. Some occasional spicy takes like today, how to be a better player, how to be a better GM, how to be a better person, all with a focus on inclusion and intersectionality so that everyone can have a good time.
And you are our amazing chat. You've been hanging out with us. You're incredible. Thank you so much. This has been a spicy but fun episode, and we so appreciate your hanging with us. We will be back next Tuesday, like I said, special guest. Let's see who we got going on. Who can we rate? My friend Ren is playing Final Fantasy 14 online. Ren is amazing. She is an artist and a community manager, and I just adore her. So we're gonna go say hi to her and watch some Final Fantasy because I know that Vivian was talking about that earlier. Thank you all for hanging out with us. We will see you Tuesday. You all are wonderful. And we will talk to you soon. Bye, y'all.